Hello, and welcome back to The Librarian of the Rings. Today we're going to be reviewing the book The Mythmakers, The Remarkable Fellowship of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. Welcome back. My name is Ben. I'm the librarian. Today we're looking at this book, The Mythmakers, and this is a really interesting book. It was published in 2024 and it's written by a man named John Hendrix. What's interesting about this book is it's a biography of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, talking about their lives and their friendship specifically. And this has been done before, but I'm not aware of it ever having been done in this format before. So The Mythmakers is a graphic novel. And so it looks like this. And so it reads like a comic book, basically, right? And it is really interesting. Now, this is written, like I said, by John Hendrix. And John Hendrix has written a number of things. I haven't read any others of his, but he writes and he does the drawings. So he's a fine artist and he also writes. And so then he puts them together in graphic novel form. So he's telling here the remarkable story of the friendship of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien, how they came together, and ultimately how they kind of grew apart, and he does it with pictures and with words, and so it's really nice. It's written for a young adult audience, so it's very approachable, more approachable, I would say, than a lot of the biographical work around J.R.R. Tolkien. This is really approachable. Definitely a teenager can pick this up and read it and really be able to get something out of it. So let's talk about what I think about it. First off, the frame here is that this story is narrated by a lion and a wizard who represent C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien respectively, and that makes a lot of sense. And obviously, if you are like a teenager or a young adult coming to this work, you're probably coming to it because you love Narnia and you love Middle-earth. And you found out that these two men were great friends who wrote some of the greatest fantasy work ever published, and you want to know more about them. So you come and you read that, and you're going to recognize immediately who's representing who, because the lion obviously is going to represent C.S. Lewis and the wizard is going to represent J.R.R. Tolkien. So you're going to understand that, but through kind of their narrative and their frame, it's going to make a lot of sense. And of course, J.R.R. Tolkien loved doing frame narratives. That was one of the things that he did a lot of. And so I think that works really well here. I've read a number of different biographies of these two men over the years, and this book I think is really good. It's very well researched. He doesn't put notes into the book itself. He puts them all at the end of the book. He has a full notes section where he goes in. But what he does do is he marks any place where he is using a direct quote, which is normally going to be from some kind of correspondence or something that was written down after a conversation that they had, so that you know which things he's directly quoting and which things he's kind of extrapolating on. And he's really clear at the end of the book. He goes into where he kind of was extrapolating what he was trying to figure out, right? And so it's really, really good that way. The visuals are really nice. I really like this art style here and how he basically does their life in comics. He starts off with individual biographical parts for each of them as he's bringing their lives together. So that follows their childhoods through World War I until they finally come together. One of the things that I really liked in this book is it has these three what he calls portals. And so each of these portals addresses a different, like, deeper level of topic. So there's one on myth, there's one on fairy stories, right? And so it's going to take you kind of more down an academic route. It's still in graphic novel form, and this is where there's a lot of humor introduced because it's all kind of fictionalized characters interacting here, but it really helps you to understand some of the background of what C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were working with. And so John Hendrix, he's mostly writing Christian works. That's kind of where he's coming from. And so there is a lot of focus in this book on the Christianity of these two men, which of course is how it's going to be. Now, I'm a Christian, so I appreciate that. Maybe not everyone will, but there's just no way you can get around it. That was fundamental to their relationship, right? C.S. Lewis was an atheist before he met J.R.R. Tolkien, and through a conversation with him and another fellow, which is depicted here in the book, he begins to embrace Christianity, and it's a big change for him, and of course then he becomes very well known for that work. That is here in this book, and it's clearly a place where John Hendrix is coming from and something that is important to him. So ultimately, where do I come on this book? Well, sure, you can tell, I really like it. I really think it's a great kind of biographical work, and I would recommend that probably anybody who's a fan of both of these two men read this book. And there are a lot of people who are fans of both of them. Now, famously, of course, C.S. Lewis absolutely loved The Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien absolutely did not love Narnia. And so that comes out in this book, and it does eventually talk about how they grew apart, which isn't coming out of that. They had many literary disagreements that didn't cause difficulties, but it talks about how their friendship did grow grow apart, even though it was always remained a really important part for each of them. But through some of the things that happened towards the later part of their lives, they became less and less close. And it doesn't shy away from dealing with that in this book. It deals directly with it and explains some of the things that were going on. Of course, we'll never know exactly what happens in a situation like that. So overall, really love The Mythmakers, The Remarkable Fellowship of C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. Highly recommend you pick it up. I got mine from my local library here. So I hope that if you are a fan of both of these men, you're able to pick this up and read through it. If you know a teen who's a big fan of them, I would definitely recommend it to them because they could really enjoy that. And that's going to do it for us today. Until next time, farewell wherever you fare. May your ears receive you at your journey's end.